안녕하십니까. 오늘은 그 보험연구원 제63회 산학 세미나를 하게 되는 날입니다. 지금 오늘 아주 중요한 이제 연구와 연구 발표와 오늘 또 세 번 아주 중요한 토론을 하실 텐데, 오늘은 뭐 평소와 다르게 저희들이 해외 저명한 학자를 모시는 관계로 어, 지금 약간 기존 시스템과 다른 시스템을 하면서 AI의 힘을 빌려서 동시 통역을 하는 방식으로 진행하고 있습니다. 그래서 혹시 진행이 좀 매끄럽지 못하더라도 이해해 주시기를 바라겠습니다. 우선 오늘 세미나를 시작하기 전에 오늘은 이제 기후 변화와 이제 지수 보험이지 않습니까? 개인적으로 저는 이제 지수 보험이 앞으로 미래 보험 산업의 아주 핵심적인 뭐 우리 미래 변화라고 하면 크게 디지털리제이션과 어떤 특히 우리나라는 소비자 보호를 굉장히 강조하고 있는데 이 두 개의 거대한 힘 앞에서 이제 보험 산업이 생존하기 위한 아주 꿈의 상품 중에 하나가 파라메트릭 인슈런스가 아닌가 이렇게 생각을 합니다. 특히 우리가 이제 분쟁이 많은 보험금 지급에서 그런 분야를 획기적으로 없애줄 수 있기 때문에요. 당연히 이제 기후보험과 같이 굉장히 다수 우리가 손해사정을 하기 어려운 어떤 다수의 소비자 또는 보험 계약자가 있을 경우에도 굉장히 유용한 보험인데요. 기술적으로 좀 문제가 여전히 좀 있고요. 뭐 도덕적 얘기가 있는데 오늘 여러분 발표를 잘 한번 보시고 오늘 오신 분들 오늘 많은 뭐 정보 그리고 많은 지식을 얻어가시길 바라겠습니다. 오늘 토론자를 먼저 소개하고 발표자를 소개하면은요. 오늘 토론해 주실 분은 오늘 세 분이십니다. 세 분 같이 우리 소개를 드리고 우리가 박수로 환영을 하겠습니다. 우선 보험연구원의 김석영 박사님이 오늘 토론해 주시고요. 그리고 코리안리에서 박수도 우리 하도록 하시죠. 네. 코리안리 백천우 박사님께서 오늘 토론해 주시고요. 네. 마지막으로 포스텍의 정광민 교수님께서 오늘 토론을 해 주시겠습니다. 오늘 발표하시는 분은 웬준츠 교수님으로서 현재 지금 아시아의 명문대학이죠. 낭양 테크놀로지컬 유니버시티 인 싱가포르에 있는 NTU라고 하는 대학입니다. 그리고 현재 뱅킹 앤 파이낸스, 뭐 한국으로 보면 재무 분야의 부회들을 맡고 계시고요. 주 교수님은 2015년에 유니버시티 오브 워틀루 보험 수리와 뭐 통계 쪽에 굉장히 유명한 대학이죠. 거기서 박사를 받으시고 지금 뭐 세계 아주 리딩 저널에 굉장히 많은 퍼블리케이션을 하시고 계시는 훌륭한 학자이십니다. 우리 멀리 있지만 우리 웬준수 교수님 발제자에게 박수를 한번 보내드리도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그러면 바로 저희들이 오늘 발제문을 우리 주 교수님으로부터 듣고 끝나면 세 분의 토론을 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
Okay, I have shared it. Everyone can see that, right? Okay, thank you, Professor, for the introduction. And I echo a lot of points that you have mentioned just now. A lot of trends that we are experiencing, the climate change and AI. And I feel, right, for the seminar today, I also feel that it's a benefit for us to enjoy the technology development and AI so that I can listen to and understand the long introduction you have said just now in Korean. Although I don't know anything about Korean, I cannot not understand Korean, but I can simultaneously, join this event. And very beneficial from this fancy technology. And I look forward to share some of our recent research in climate change and innovative insurance solutions with everyone today. So it's my honor and thank you again for the invitation. And I hope through this seminar in the future, we can have more opportunities for collaboration in this emerging area. So hi everyone, I'm Wenjun from Nanyang Technological University, Nanyang Business School. Again, it's my honor to share some of our recent research in index insurance. So today I'm going to give you an overview of the idea of index-based risk solutions, focusing more on insurance, but I want to highlight that these index-based solutions are not only restricted in insurance industry. We can also design similar ideas, in capital market solutions too. So, so for my presentation today, I plan to give you firstly a broad introduction of the background, especially why it is important for us to develop new risk solutions for climate risk and similar emerging risks. And then I'll introduce the idea of index-based insurance, also known as parametric insurance. It's a new innovative risk management tool to help policyholders, especially those policyholders in developing economies to protect themselves and improve some of their coverage for the systemic types of risk, such as climate change. And then I'll talk about a deep learning-based insurance design framework that our research team has developed. And then I'll briefly talk about the public-private partnership, PPP, which we believe is very important for such index-based insurance solutions to be successful and even financially viable. So in that framework, we look at not only from the policyholders and insurance designers perspective, we also look at the profit making from insurance companies' perspective and also from policyholders and government's perspective. And then I'll finally quickly conclude. Okay, so climate change, of course, now it's a very hot topic, and we have seen a lot of evidences of climate changes such as greenhouse gas emission, temperature rising, sea level rising, and over the past decade we see more and more extreme events, catastrophic type of events with higher frequency, higher severity. So this evidences of climate change, not only important from scientific point of view, but also has a lot of implications for insurance industry and also financial industry. For example, the extreme events, right, with higher frequency and even higher severity impose more challenges for insurance companies to reevaluate their traditional risk models, risk modeling framework, and their reserving framework, because let's say catastrophic type of events, which traditionally are treated as low frequency events, right? For example, one out of 100 years event, or one out of 200 events, and because of climate change, now they become more frequent and could be 1 out of 10 years event, and that poses a lot of challenges for insurance pricing and rate making. Sea level rising risk, for example, is another challenge, especially for city-states like Singapore. The government is very serious about the sea level rising event and trying to use different both scientific-based mitigation and adaptation strategies, and also natural-based solutions to try to improve the resilience of our coastal area. Right. So so the below this table here shows you a survey result based on the most recent World Economic Forum survey. So this survey basically asks a lot of experts about their perspectives of important risks, and this is a list of the top 10 lists. And we can see the extreme weather events is ranked number 2 in the top 10 list. And also another climate and the environmental related risk here is critical change to Earth system, which is ranked number 6, which is also very important. And the time scale for when we talk about climate change, magnitude and severity is important, and time scale is also very important, because traditionally people believe climate change is a long-term thing, and our current generation may not need to worry too much about it. But actually, it's not the case. As you can see from this figure, you can see the horizontal line is the short-term severity in 2 years time window, and the vertical line is the long-term severity in 10 years time window. So basically, this figure show what this figure is telling us is the relative importance of different risk factors in both short-term and long-term. And if we see a certain risk that is aligned more, far away in the 45-degree diagonal, it means that this risk is important and critical both the short-term period and long-term period. And that is what we observe for a lot of the climate and environmental related risks. For example, the extreme weather events, right? They impose challenges both in short-term and long-term. Similarly, biodiversity losses and these critical changes to Earth system and nature source shortages. So we can see that climate change imposes challenges to us, right, to our current generation and our future generations in both the short-term and long-term period. And because of climate change, in recent years, we have seen more and more extreme weather events and natural disasters, such as flooding and tropical cyclones, extreme heating, wildfires. And these extreme events not only cause a lot of economic damages, economic losses, but they also cause lives and impact of the health conditions of our human being. Unfortunately, although climate change risk is important, right now the protection gap is huge. So as we can see from this figure, this is statistics provided by Munich Re, and we can see since 1980, in the past 40 decades, natural disasters have caused more than, and this is the direct cost of natural disasters, and we did not even consider the indirect cost, which is even larger. So the direct cost of natural disasters is as high as 6.7 trillion US dollars. But among those costs, among those losses, only 1/3 of these losses are insured. So we can see the protection gap is very, very huge. And that's why we are calling for efficient, cost-effective, innovative risk solutions for us to tackle the climate change challenges. And index-based insurance that I'm going to talk about today is one promising direction. So weather conditions, taking agriculture sector, which is one of the most important weather and climate sensitive sector as an example, it affects our economy, particularly agriculture. So it is estimated that adverse weather may cause 70 to 90% of agricultural production losses. And because weather risk and climate risk are systemic in the sense that they are usually large, abrupt, and widespread, whenever it happens, it is not only, it is not localized, it's going to be impacting a very wide spread of geographical locations and cause systemic effects. So managing and dealing with climate and weather risk is very challenging. And that's why weather insurance is treated as a promising tool to hedge this challenging systemic type of weather risk. We have observed a growing global crop insurance and weather insurance market. In general, when we talk about weather insurance, there are two types of insurances that we talk about. The first type is the traditional indemnity-based insurance. Sometimes we call it conventional insurance. So this type of insurance are well-known and traditional. It's a typical insurance that we are familiar with. So the insurance payoffs will depend on the actual losses of policyholders. So for example, if the policyholder is a farmer, the payoff of the indemnity insurance will be based on either their yield production losses or their revenue losses of their farmland. But the problem of indemnity-based insurance is that they are usually very expensive because of the systemic nature of agriculture production and the weather risk. So usually the premiums are very high, and it typically relies on very heavy government subsidies to make such insurance program sustainable and viable. And also the administration cost is high, which is another factor that contributes to the high premium of traditional insurance. And the settlement process usually is lengthy, and it also suffers from severe adverse selection and the moral hazard issues. So an alternative of conventional indemnity-based insurance is index insurance, also known as parametric insurance. So the key difference of index-based insurance compared to the traditional insurance is that their payoffs are not directly linked to the actual losses. Instead, the payoffs of index insurance are based on some predetermined indices. And in the case of weather index insurance, the payoffs will be decided before the contract, insurance contract is determined based on certain future realizations of weather indices. So just as a simple example, this figure below shows the payoff structure of rainfall insurance offered by a general insurer in rural India since 2003. And you can see this is a single index insurance program. And the payoff function is decided by the realization, the future realization of the rainfall. So you can see a horizontal line of the payoff structure is the realization of the rainfall index, and the vertical line is the payoff amount. So when rainfall is very, very low and lower than certain threshold, which is 10 millimeter, you can see the payoff is high, right? It's a level constant payoff with a maximum payout amount. But when the rainfall index is higher than certain threshold, the payoff amount drops and also reduces linearly with the rainfall index realization. So the key structure of because of the key characteristics of the index insurance, it's irrelevant or not irrelevant. Its payoff is not directly linked to actual losses suffered by the policyholders. So a lot of problems of the traditional indemnity-based insurance is potentially can be eliminated. For example, adverse selection and moral hazard, because now since the payoff is based on the weather indices, which is out of control of the policyholders, so policyholders cannot manipulate the payoff function. Therefore, the adverse selection and moral hazard issue is addressed. So because of the advantage, index-based solutions, including index insurance, has been very popular in not only agriculture insurance, but in many, many areas. For example, people use index-based solutions to manage catastrophic risk and enhance climate change resilience. And we also have a quite emerging longevity or mortality risk securitization market, where people try to use capital market solutions to hedge mortality or longevity risk by designing the mortality or longevity bonds. Or even people use index-based solutions to handle pandemic risk, facilitate micro-lending, and also very widely applied in agriculture sector. So using this slide, I provide a very brief summary, or like put everything together to give you a comparison of the index insurance versus the conventional insurance. So we know that for index insurance, there's no moral hazard, or even the moral hazard is the minimum because of the index-based structure. But of course, in conventional insurance, the moral hazard is high. And the cost is also low for index insurance. It's very cost effective because the payoff will be based on for example, weather indices. And because of the technology right nowadays, right, it's very convenient to decide the payoff amounts immediately after the realization of the weather indices. So it's very convenient, and insurance companies even can achieve the instant payout to the policyholders But for traditional indemnity-based insurance, the cost can be high, and it takes a very long period for the claim to be settled. Right. And lastly, for index-based insurance, because the payout is based on the index rather than the actual losses, so there potentially could be a mismatch between the index payout and the actual losses suffered by the policyholders, and that is the basis risk we talk about. So this is a potential drawback of the index-based insurance, the potentially high basis risk. But for conventional insurance, this is not a problem. There's no basis risk at all. Okay, so that's why in reality, although very promising and we have seen a lot of potential advantages of index-based solutions, in reality, however, we see very low demand in the market for the index insurance, and it heavily relies on the government subsidies. And the key reason is the basis risk I had just mentioned. So basically, basis risk refers to the mismatch between the underlying indices that is designed for the insurance contract and actual losses. And such mismatch will trigger majorly two different types of mismatch. One is, for example, the actual losses, policyholders suffer actual losses, but the index trigger is not satisfied. So the index insurance failed to pay. And this type of mismatch may cause problems for the future demand or the trust issues for the index-based products, for example, because the policyholders suffer losses, but they fail to receive any payoff. And another possible scenarios or another case of basis risk is the opposite. So policyholders did not suffer any losses, but the index insurance actually pay. So this is good from the policyholder's perspective, but from insurance company's perspective, it's not good, right? And it may hinder the future sustainability of the index insurance program. So from insurance design's perspective, if possible, we hope to minimize both type of mismatch. We want the payoff of the index insurance contract and the actual losses should be aligned as much as possible. So the low demand of index insurance is also a very interesting puzzle in academic and in the literature. There are a lot of research studying and trying to find factors that contribute to such low demand. And it is interesting empirically that people find it's very counterintuitive that even the most risk-averse policyholders and farmers, they display very low demand and interest in index insurance. And people try to find why, and they find different contributing factors. So basis risk in the literature is cited as the most important factor that contribute to the low demand. But besides basis risk, people also find the prospects theory can explain the low demand. For example, people find that policyholders tend to underestimate extreme events, catastrophic type of events. And because of that, from the policyholders' perspective, they tend to underestimate the real value of index-based insurance, and therefore the demand becomes low. Another interesting contributing factor is ambiguity aversion. So the ambiguity of the real the relationship between the index insurance contract and the actual losses, it also contributes to the low demand and the farmers' interest to purchase index insurance. And complexity aversion, right? Policyholders tend to try to avoid very complex contract that they don't understand. And because of that, this new concept of index-based insurance in some areas cannot be accepted by some people, and some other factors, for example, liquidity constraints, which is usually true for farmers and in rural areas, and the past payoff experiences. So, for example, people find that if the farmers get some payoff in the previous year, they tend to renew their contract in the next year. So past experience or finance and insurance literacy and insurance distribution. All these factors contribute to the low demand of indexing insurance. Okay, so I think I have very limited time, so I will go through very quickly of our research design. So the theoretical model that we set up in this research is that we set up a utility maximization problem where we consider a representative producer or policyholder who wants to maximize their expected utility. And our key variable we want to study here is the function I, which is a functional of a high dimensional index x. And this x can be weather indices or other type of useful indices that the insurance company believe is important to model the loss y that is suffered by the policyholder. So this is our optimization problem. And the one thing I want to highlight here is that the key advantage of this design framework compared to the traditional indemnity-based insurance that a lot of constraints in the traditional insurance design problem do not need to bound. For example, we allow certain part of overinsurance for the index-based insurance, so which means that the functional I of x can be larger than the actual losses suffered by the policyholder, and this is because of the index-based insurance structure and the basis risk, potential basis risk that can exist. So and that is why, because of the possibility of overinsure in certain countries, the government are very conservative about index insurance because some of them believe that this product is not really an insurance product, but some governments are open to that. So this is also a very interesting regulation problem that deserves further discussion. So to solve the optimization problem, it's very challenging to obtain analytical solutions. So what we did, we imposed some AI-based framework and using data-driven approach by replacing everything with their empirical counterparts. So I'll skip the details of our empirical design and just directly show you some empirical results. So here you can see the comparison of our design index insurance with our framework and the traditional single index piecewise linear contract. So you can see our design contract is very similar and aligned with the traditional indemnity-based insurance with a deductible. And we find that our design policy can improve farmers' utility, reduce insurance premium, and improve index insurance design, which is very important. And in terms of the hedging effect, you can see the distribution change of the policyholders' wealth before and after the index insurance protection. So the blue line here, the blue dash line here is the wealth of farmers without insurance, and the orange line here is the wealth distribution with insurance protection. So you can see the losses reduce uncertainty a lot, and the downside risk of the wealth is also significantly mitigated. We also did a very interesting kind of very strong out of sample test, which we call the adjacent state test. So basically what we did is that we believe that for in practice in a lot of index-based insurance design problem, data availability may be an issue. So for example, the insurance companies or the government may not have enough credible historical data for them to design a viable index insurance so that the basic risk is minimized. So we want to see whether the framework that we design is transferable to certain regions that do not have enough data, but experience similar loss, and weather conditions, for example. So what we did in this design is we assume that we only have data from Illinois, right? The state here, purple one in the middle, and we only train the insurance policy using the data from Illinois, and then we test the policy we trained using data from several adjacent states, such as Iowa, Indiana, etc. And then we also test the performance of the contract that we train using Illinois states with North Dakota. So we do this because we want to see the performance of the insurance we train using Illinois, whether it can be transferable to their neighboring states, which we assume have similar, the agriculture and weather conditions, and they are also neighboring with each other. We also want to see whether these insurance policies can even be transferred to a state that is very far away and share very limited similarities. And our results show that the performance of the contract we plan using Illinois states only perform satisfyingly well in adjacent states like Iowa, which share a lot of similarities with Illinois. But unsurprisingly, we see that the contract does not perform well at all in a very far away state like North Dakota. And it actually reduced with the insurance in a farther state, it actually reduced the utility of policyholders. So our result indicate that in the scenario we have restricted data, but we have some information from a similar data set. We can transfer the insurance policy that we planned to that region and that portfolio. But if our two portfolios are too different, I think this transferable learning experience cannot be applied. Okay, so I think I have very limited time, so I'll skip the PPP part and directly go to the conclusion part. So in conclusion, I think index-based insurance is very promising risk management tools, especially in the context of climate change. But currently, a lot of existing programs suffer from low demand and a sustainability issue. And basis risk is one of the most important reasons that hinder the market participation of index insurance. And we can utilize different AI and machine learning and technology-based solutions to create innovative index insurance design and improve the demand of such programs. And PPP, the public-private partnership, is also very important to scale up the adoption of index-based insurance. So I'll stop here, and that's all for my presentation today, and I look forward for future discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanjun. It's a great presentation, and we enjoyed very much. And let's hear about three discussions, discussion about your paper. 자, 이제 토론으로 가서요. 우리 세 분 토론자 말씀 듣고 at the end of the discussion, we come back to you and we get your comments on the question raised or discussions discussant had. Okay. 우리 김석영 박사님, 시작 부탁드리겠습니다.
예, 그 발표 잘 들었습니다. 아주 훌륭한 발표였고, 사실 최근에 기후 변화 때문에 여러 가지 이슈가 많이 발생하고 있어가지고 분들이 많은 데서 지수보험이 관심을 많이 끌고 있는 것 같습니다. 발표에서 말씀하신 것처럼 사실 기후 지수보험 같은 경우가 사실 지금 이제 개발도상국에서 많이 활용되고 있고, 그 이유가 어떤 비용 효율성 측면에서 많이 활용되고 있습니다. 그런데 그것이 과연 우리나라 같은 나라, 개발도상국과 다른 우리나라처럼 여러 가지 사회적 인프라가 잘 되는 나라에서도 그것이 유용하게 사용될 수 있는지는 약간 다른 질문인 것 같습니다. 그래서 제가 몇 가지 저 나름대로 생각을 정리해 보았습니다. 닥터 추께서도 언급하신 것처럼 베시스 리스크와 관련된 내용이 주로 많이 있습니다. 일단 기후변화, 인덱스 인슈런스, 파라메틱 인슈런스의 장단점에 대해서 한번 생각해 보게 되면은 어드밴티지가 뭐냐면은 그 로우 어세스먼트 코스트를 낮출 수 있다는 것, 그것이 장점이란다면, 단점은 그 어떤 기준을 정하는 그것을 측정하는 코스트가 발생한다는 것이 될 것입니다. 그러려면은 우리가 자연스러운 질문이 그 두 개 코스트 중 어느 것이 더 높냐는 것이 되겠죠. 그리고 그것이 어떤 환경에 있을 때 그것이 과연 더 높은지 낮은지가 궁금하게 됩니다. 그리고 한번 그 정한 크라이테리아가 과연 변하지 않을 것이냐, 변할 것이냐, 그리고 그것이 변하지 않는다면 어떤 환경 속에서 변하지 않을 것이냐는 그런 질문을 하게 될 것 같습니다. 그래서 제가 좀 찾아봤는데 그냥 몇 가지 사례만 중심으로 소개를 드릴까 합니다. This year we had a very special experience related to the climate change in this summer. As you know, we had a very severe drought in Gangneung, and as you know, there are two cities, Gangneung and Sokcho, in Gangwon province. The distance between two cities are just 55 kilometers. It's very close, and there, as of August 10, 2025, there was only small difference in rainfall. It's about 55 millimeters. But as we heard from the news, Gangneung experienced very severe drought and water rationing. But while Sokcho wasn't unaffected, even though they are very close. They had a very same amount of rainfall, but they have very different experience. Why? Because in 1992 to the 2018, Sokcho also had similar experience. And then Sokcho prepared for the drought, so they made the underground dams. But Gangneung didn't do that one. So because of preparation or not, the result was totally different. So then, if we like to make the basis, I mean, in the what is that? The insurance, then we have to check everything, every preparation there one. So it makes some cost. But we know from this example, we learned that if we make some preparation, then index insurance should be changed. But we have another experience that one. In Gangnam Station is famous for the Gangnam style, and also its experience is famous for, not famous, notorious for the flooding incidents. From 2010 to 2022, there were 5 floodings. So there are pictures here. The very first picture was very famous for one. Somebody sitting on the car, watching the cell phone on the, and the other one is the subway station near to my house. So that day I was drinking your way. I had a problem that day. Anyway, so because of that one, so government invested 1.4 trillion won. That is about almost 1 billion US dollars to expand its Suez pipeline and build the Beijing separation tunnels. Even though we spent huge money in Gangnam Station around the area, but still we had problems. Actually, these 2 pictures was took after 2022. So in Gangneung and Sokcho case, if you prepare for some climate change, then that affected on. But this one didn't. That means how do we know the criteria to decide the basis insurance? So the criteria for index insurance needs to be updated, and due to the infrastructure improvement and new technology, but no one knows the criteria appropriate for risk assessment and for triggering claim payment. So we have I showed you 2 examples, Sokcho and Gangneung, and the Gangnam Station. So because of these factors, the cost of establishing criteria is increasing, and both of customers and insured maybe not the certain about index insurance. So company and people, they don't believe the index number they may not believe the index numbers, and insurance company also, they cannot believe the numbers, the index. And that's why, so this index insurance is purpose for some undeveloped countries. So that case, the condition doesn't change many years because their infrastructure is not changing. It's in short time. But in Korea, we are updating very fast. That case means we have to spend a lot of money to check and updating the index. So that means the index insurance cannot be the popular in Korea, I think.
Okay, Dr. Chu, do you understand the first discussion comment?
Yeah, I can understand
Okay,
roughly.
I just checking that whether we're going to hear another second and third discussions. So just in case you didn't understand the comments.
Yeah, I have the translation with me,
Okay.
so I think I'm good. Yeah, if
Okay.
it's comfortable, you can use Korean if you want.
예, 그러면 we going to 자 우리가 두 번째 토론하시는 코리안인의 백선우 박사님의 토론을 듣도록 하겠습니다. 예, 토론 부탁드리겠습니다. Dr. Chu, you can turn off your camera. Yes.
안녕하세요. 코리안니 백선우입니다. 토론에 초대해 주셔서 감사하고 저에 대해 토론을 시작하겠습니다. Hello, this is Chun Baek from Korean니. Actually, I'd like to discuss on 2 topics relating to the index insurance. The one is the terminology or classification of index or parametric insurance, and the other is the suitability of the index insurance depending on the line of business. theoretically or academically, the index insurance is part of the parametric insurance, and sometimes they are used interchangeably. But that's okay because they both use the same index or parameter. I mean the physical weather measurement. But in IRS market, they are quite different. Okay, the cat bond is the very representative product of IRS market. They use the three different trigger type. The first is the indemnity, the second is the index, and the last is the parametric. And indemnity trigger is based on the actual loss, and then the index trigger uses the industry loss index based the trigger, and the parametric they use the physical measurement. I mean, just like a wind speed or the earthquake, the ground shaking. But in here, the quite different thing in the general terminology in the between the insurance, the index insurance and the parametric insurance is the index trigger in IRS market use the loss base. So that is a very big difference. So actually, the basis risk of the indemnity is very low, but the basis risk of the parametric in the IRS market is much higher than indemnity, the index triggers. Okay, this shows the portion of the each cat bond from the late 1990s to present, and then as you can see, at the early at the early 2000s, the parametric triggers takes almost 50% of the issued cat bond, because at that time investors want the bond easy to understand. But now the parametric bond trigger type takes less than 5% because of the high basis risk of the parametric triggers. So what I want to say is actually many of the articles they said the index trigger has lower the basis risk than the parametric itself, but actually some of them may comes from the IRS market, not original the index or parametric insurance. So that is very important. So when we talk about the index based insurance has lower than parametric insurance, but that almost comes from the kind of the product using the loss base. And the second thing I want to say is the suitability of the parametric or the index insurance. This table shows the recent report of IAIS saying that the suitability of the parametric insurance. And as you can see, the index insurance is really good for the agriculture or the weather insurance for SME, small or medium-sized enterprise. But for the property insurance, that takes a great portion in the non-life the insurance market, is not good for property insurance. That is because of the basis risk. I'll show you another sample from the Bank of England. A couple of years ago, the Bank of England suggested 4 methodology to estimate the physical risk of the climate change. Then in here, they said there are 4 methodologies. The first one is the expert judgment. The second one is the hazard map, and third one is the footprint, and the last one is the CAT model. And in here, they said the hazard map. Actually, hazard map adopt similar process to calculate the loss with the index insurance or the parametric insurance. And hazard map is suitable for the individual exposures, not for portfolio level, because the hazard map can estimate, overestimate of the losses. So both the IIS report and the Bank of England said the uncertainty of the net cat damage. You can see the picture of the actual damages from the net cat. Left-hand side is the footprint of the flood, 침수 흔적도 말하는 겁니다. In Seoul, and the right-hand side is the damage by hurricane in Florida. And as you can see, the buildings or houses are damaged. Even though they are very close side, but the damages are quite different. You can see in here, few buildings are damaged, and the similar pattern in like this. This kind of the characteristic of the net cat damage is called uncertainty, and in CAM model, we call it as a secondary uncertainty of the net cat. And then this kind of secondary uncertainty can illustrate the graphs like that. Okay, as you can see, the CAN model calculates losses depending on the severity or the intensity of the net cat, like using this kind of damage functions. And as you can see, at the lower intensity event, this kind of the distribution function of loss are skewed to the left-hand side. And as the intensity grow up, this kind of the average of the loss distribution move to the right-hand side. So that means if the insurance product is set for the low intensity, maybe the index insurance or parametric insurance must set the average payment to this kind of average value. But you know, actually the people who really need the support of the government or the payment of the insurance is not this kind of low damage, but who need is this kind of the tail value. So that means this kind of basis risk always happen, and then this kind of gap between client expectation and coverage is quite important issue relating to the index insurance. I would like to conclude my the conclusion with the recent sample of Korean government. Recently, the Ministry of the Environment tried to develop the weather insurance using the index methodology, and then this insurance program is designed for the low income laborers or the small merchandise. And then at the beginning of this development, they set the payment for the daily labors, I mean the 일용직, as around $25. 3만 원에서 3만 5천 원 정도로 they set the payment as that value. But you know, the actual daily wage for the construction field labor is around the 150 or something. So if this kind of program works and they pay some money, it will be much helpful, the more than rather than nothing. But the gap between the expectation and payment are quite different. That is what I want to say within my discussion. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 예, 뭐 아까 제일 처음에 우리 김수경 박사님께 criteria of index insurance, 소위 말해서 이제 index insurance, 지금 아까 말씀하신 또는 파라메트릭 인슈런스를 개발하는데 과연 그 기준이 과연 개발하는데 기준이 얼마나 정교해야 되느냐에 대한 이슈를 말씀해 주셨다면 우리 백선우 박사님께서는 이제 이걸 조금 실무적으로 지금 실질적으로 파라메트릭 인슈런스 아까 이거 지금 백선우 박사님의 말씀에 의하면 피지컬 파라미터가 있는 것이 주로 되는 거죠, 그죠? 그것들이 실제 시장에서는 그렇게 ILS 아까 마켓에서 쉐어가 상당히 좀 줄어들고 있어서 그 대신에 이제 인뎀니티 우리가 전통적인 인슈런스 방식이 늘어나고 있다는 것 그리고 다른 이제 세컨더리 방법들 캡 모델에 관련된 방법들에 관련된 이슈 그리고 최근 환경부에서 제시한 그리고 여전히 이제 파라메트릭 인슈런스에 대한 어떤 가능성 이런 것들을 아주 종합적으로 새로운 정보와 같이 토론해 주셨습니다. 자, 마지막으로 우리 정광민 박사님 교수님에게 토론 부탁드리겠습니다.
Thank you for having me in this discussion of a very timely topic, and I'm really pleased to have Wenjun. We had actually a seminar in August in Singapore at the NTU, and I was actually having this discussion presentation from her, on that seminar, and I was actually feeling very refreshed today, although I listened to this at that time. It's a very nice paper, and I really enjoyed my reading of this paper with a lot of new things when it comes to the methodology and the context. All right, so let me give you a little summary of this topic, this paper. So she actually talked about what really challenged the current parametric insurance market. So there is kind of a low demand, although the product is very innovative because of this basis risk. So that is actually the key to market this index insurance, with a high demand. And I'm going to actually challenge this topic anyway in the later slide, but there is kind of low demand for that. And this basis risk is basically the mismatch between actual loss and unsatisfaction of this trigger, the trigger in the index. There's kind of challenge from demand side and also from the supply side. So meaning that when the index is triggered, the actual loss didn't exist. The demand side people, the participants will get anyway the indemnity. But on the other hand, actual loss happened, but the index is not triggered, right? So that's kind of the two direction the basis risk in this case. Anyway, this basis risk exists upon this piecewise linear index design. So either no loss or the index there, right? And also there is kind of high dependency on the government subsidy. So it's a very much state-backed market where the government is supporting financially, the insurance companies. And also probably the demand side. So she actually described the literature has documented several factors driving this low demand. For example, the complexity of version, ambiguity, and some literacy. So her proposal for this index insurance is very technologically innovative with this very new deep learning and also transformer-based model, to make this index more robust. And she suggested this utility maximization framework with neural nets to design this optimal indemnity function. And her product, her proposal outperforms the traditional conventional contracts by showing some improvement in expected utility, and also reduction in premiums and also increase in the coverage. What I was very interested in this paper was actually the transformer-based model. I got actually the presentation slide, but I presume she used this BERT adapted for climate data to select relatively more important weather indexes. So I guess she used a climate BERT. I assume that, but she used this transformer-based model to filter out, what is relatively more important, to build up this index. So that was actually a very interesting point in my case. And also she tried to compare different types of PPP models, either from government-backed the market-led PPP, or the combination, I guess, right? So she listed up a couple of examples from the word, to classify all of this into these three categories. Right. So my impression on this paper was actually the fact that the paper is indeed very good, with very productive insights for the market index-based market design. And I believe that this paper has a potential for being a very good reference for the follow-up research to propose some advanced, parametric product. And I have seen some trend in the academia these days, even like in the very top journal publications, they tend to use more this transformer-based model to generate the new variables, new factors, to address very interesting research questions that have never seen, and never addressed before. So that's very interesting point here. And there are a couple of key lessons. One is the key lesson is basically the fact that it is very important to reduce the basis risk. So basis risk is kind of a fundamental that the market should address, to increase the demand in general. And that is highly associated with the point that reducing the basis risk is very much technical. So we have to test a lot of stuff, whether this index is robust or not. And otherwise, there will be huge damage, to both supply and demand sides. Okay. So I have a couple of points from her talk. One is probably the thought that there should be something we have to learn from this paper in terms of the local market here. So the first one is, well, we have to consider this regional heterogeneity in the climate risks. So although the Korean Peninsula is not as big as, for example, Russia or US, but we have still like some regional heterogeneity in the climate. As you can see from this graph from Korea Meteorological Agency, you see like on the left-hand side, there is kind of a annual basis, a heterogeneity across all this peninsula with a different precipitation and also temperature. And the right-hand side, you can also see all these different temperature heterogeneity and also the precipitation heterogeneity. So meaning that the index should be dependent on the regional this heterogeneity, right? There should not be something homogeneous index to apply to all this entire market here. So and also these parametric products may need to localize all these risk exposures and indexes. Second point is this heavy dependence on the government subsidies. As you may know, this crop disaster insurance market here in Korea, and also the crop insurance in the US, they are all actually heavily dependent on the government subsidy. So even like in the US market, there are only a few market players backed by the government. So meaning that if you want to actually implement all this parametric insurance market, then you need to make sure that there should be some pricing competitiveness guaranteed, and also the profitability guaranteed, for the supply side. The lesson I thought about, for our market is that the data should be more comprehensive. We need to actually combine this accurate, high resolution weather data and climate-related loss data. So we need to combine all of this to make the index better calibrated and also make the index-based insurance market sustainable. Another point is that there is no, in her index, there is no as far as I know, there is no consideration of changing climate, the sort of a climate change. So meaning that we may need to consider this changing climate in the index, where some regions are more exposed to this changing climate landscape, some not, right? On the right hand side, that's actually some graphs from my paper, actually published last year. We actually make the grids on the Asian Pacific area on the top of the graph over there here. Oops. Yeah. So here you see, then some regions are actually on the trend of increasing temperature. Some regions are actually in a trend of decreasing temperature. So meaning that if you actually set up this index based on the weather indexes or the weather-wise information, then we need to probably diversify all these different trends in the different the regions. We need to consider all this changing climate. That's the point. And in that sense, I always discuss this index, or even like with Dr. Beck here. This is kind of an index proposed in the North American actuarial societies. The 6 different societies are creating this index almost like 10 years ago. And this index is actually taking into account this changing climate. So all these 6 different variables here, they are sort of anomalies where the extreme weather, the statistics are compared with the reference period, which is the 60 years ago. So how these extreme weather conditions are changing, right? So these 6 variables are taking into account these changes over time. So meaning that once you have this kind of time-dependent variables to combine all of this into one index, then that index would have some, a feature of having this changing climate. And indeed, we try to make the Korean Actuarial Climate Index, and we found that there is a weak monotonically increasing trend over the last 60 years, almost, in Korea. And I found one paper, Garrido et al., 2023, who proposed this parametric index-based insurance with this ACI that has been reformulated with French climate data. And that was very interesting paper. It's a still working paper, but very interesting to see. And they propose a seasonal coverage of this parametric product, not the annual basis, seasonal basis, when the index is quite peak or, in a seasonal the features. The last point, but not least, she also described a couple of different parametric insurance products with different risks, but she actually didn't mention the cyber risk, which is also one of my key research area. And this is one of my working papers on index-based insurance for the cyber risk. And we try to actually build this index here with duration of attacks and some statistics from our factor model. And we combined that to make this index. And this index is quite powerful, where you see this is a kind of benchmark without the firm's vulnerability, so kind of firm's risk. This is our model with firm's vulnerability. And you see the number of duration is way smaller for our model, meaning that the firms who are attacked by the hackers will have more probability of having this indemnity, right? So this actually increase the welfare of the demand side. But our model is actually reducing the basis risk. We measure the size of basis risk with some error the statistics here. We reduce the basis risk here, but the ruin probability of the insurance company is almost the same. So no increase in the ruin probability for the insurance side. So this is probably kind of the benchmark for the parametric insurance product for the different types of risk. Okay, thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 예, 우리 정부 발표에 대해서는 정광민 교수님도 이 지수 보험의 전문가시기 때문에 우리 닥터 추가 이렇게 이제 토론을 해주실 것 같고, 오늘 이 전체 이제 오늘 많이 오신 분들이 언론사에서 많이 오셨는데 이게 약간 학문적인 이 논문이다 보니까 좀 재미가 없을 수 있어서 간단하게 제가 한번 서머리를 해드리면 이런 겁니다. 이제 지수보험이라는 게 무슨 얘기인지는 아셨죠, 그죠? 우리가 보험 상품처럼 손해를 직접 확인하지 않고, 그죠? 어떤 날씨나 또는 비가 어느 정도 왔느냐 이런 거에서 트리거가 되어서 지급하는 것인데, 이제 이 보험 이것을 모델로 하기 위해서 여기 나와 있는 지금 X와 Y라는 게, 여기 이제 X가 웨더 컨디션이거든요. 날씨가 얼마나 나쁘냐, 아주 나쁘냐라는 이제 웨더 컨디션이고, Y라는 것이 이제 실제 이 크롭 로스인 거예요. 그러니까 X와 Y를 동시에 추정하려고, 사실은 이 소위 말해서 이 보험료 계산을 하려고 그러면 우리가 이제 디스트리뷰션 펑션을 추정하는데, 이거를 여기 지금 뉴럴 네트워크, 여기 AI죠, 그죠? 이 굉장히 많은 데이터를 넣어서 사실은 추정하게 만드신 거예요. 만들어서 여러분이 보시는 닥터 추 페이퍼에 보시면 16쪽에 그 그림이 있지 않습니까? 그림이, 그죠? 그림이 하나는 퍼져 있고 하나는 아주 거의 직선 가깝게 이렇게 붙어 있잖아요. 그죠? 손실, 로스와 보험금 지급이 굉장히 가깝게 붙어 있잖아요. 그죠? 그러니까 과거에는 손실이 굉장히 이렇게 크고 작은 데 대해서 손실과 실제 보험금 지급이 완전히 콜레이션이 안 되어 있는데 굉장히 이제 높게 콜레이션이 되어 있다는 것이 이게 성과이고, 그 다음에 이 다운사이드 리스크를 이제 이 모델이 굉장히 성공적으로 했다는 게 17페이지에 나와 있는 이 그림이 성과인 겁니다. 그래서 이제 그런 성과를 지금 AI를 활용한 모델로 하시는 게 우리 정광민 교수님이나 우리 닥터 추가 하시는 연구라고 이렇게 아시면 되고, 제가 이제 마지막으로 my question to Dr. Chu to you is that you and our discussant Dr. Peck and Dr. Chung, you all talk about parametric insurance with either physical damages, but my concern is that more like a personal injury, such as a minor injury in auto insurance or accidents. Because of accident as a minor injury, right? Minor injury cause a lot of supply-demand disputes, so public dispute, consumers' complaints. So whether parametric insurance could reduce in this field, 아까 백 박사님 슬라이드에 보니까 아까 그것은 partially applicable 이렇게 적어놨던 것 같아요, 그죠? 근데 소비자 관점에서 보면, 그리고 우리가 보험회사와 소비자의 관점에서 보면 파라메트릭 인슈런스가 분쟁을 획기적으로 줄일 수 있다는 이제 기대가 있거든요. 그런데 이제 그 부분에 대해서 Dr. Chu, what are your thoughts about that part? So that's my question. 자, 요 정도 하고 우리가 Dr. Chu에게 마지막 comment response를 하도록 넘겨드리겠습니다. Dr. Chu, would you like to respond or say your comments on the discussions?
Thank you, Prof. So you're asking me to comment on anything or any particular question?
Yes, anything and any particular. Yeah, it's your call. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the very informative and insightful panel discussion. I personally also feel I learned a lot from the three panelists' presentations and discussions.
Dr. Chu, would you turn on your camera, please?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I enjoyed the three presentations from the panelists too, and I also learned a lot, especially I saw some, I learned about the disaster, the flood risk characteristics in Korea, and some interest and also concern in the local market to adopt index insurance. I'm also very interested to see the discussion about the ILS, the insurance-linked security, and the differences of terminologies in that market. So all very interesting discussions. And lastly, Kwame's discussion about the cyber index insurance actually is very interesting to me. Because last week I attended a local summit about cyber insurance and cyber risk solutions. And a lot of practitioners attended that summit, and people mentioned the interest. There's a delegated roundtable discussion about cyber parametric insurance. And I think according to the feedback from the market practitioners, at least those practitioners in Southeast Asia, that they said in the market right now, there's only one product, one insurance company offering the cyber parametric insurance, and they believe the key challenge, instead of rather not similar to, very different from agriculture weather index insurance or parametric insurance, is that for agriculture, the weather indices are usually quite straightforward and easy to find. For example, temperature, or even some induced index from that, like cooling degree days, heating degree days, and all those things, they are widely accepted, and their high correlation with the agricultural production is obvious and widely accepted. But for cyber parametric insurance, major hurdle is it's difficult to find widely accepted index to design the cyber parametric insurance, especially that cyber risk is a global issue, but a lot of attacks are regionalized. So I'm happy and interested to see that Prof. Jun Kwame actually, in his research, developed a very powerful index, and I'm interested to read this paper in more detail. That's all my comments. Thank you again.
땡큐. 혹시 오늘 오신 우리 여기 뭐 지금 이제 네트워크에서 질문이 올라오신 게 있으면 그걸 저한테 전달해 주시고, 아니면 오늘 오신 분들 중에서 뭐 간단한 질문이라도 있으시면 질문해 주셔도 될 것 같습니다. 혹시 있으신가요? 아까 그 질문에 대해서는 우리 백천우 박사님하고 우리 디스커션 어떻게 생각하시는지 아까 제가 질문 드렸는데, 약간 일종의 마이너 인저리에 관련되어서 우리가 이제 소비자 분쟁이 많은 그런 필드에서 과연 파라메트릭 인슈런스나 뭐 또는 뭐 인덱스 인슈런스가 어떤 역할을 할 수 있는 것인지. 그래서 지금 자동차 같으면 아주 경미 사고 같은 경우에 우리가 분쟁 또는 보험금을 뭐 많이 주고 적게 주고 하는 서로가 밀당이 사실은 있잖아요. 그죠? 그리고 이제 뭐 실손이나 아니면 상해보험 같은 경우에도 경미사고 같은 경우에 사실은 상당히 소비자의 요구와 또는 뭐 공급자의 어떤 생각 이런 것이 상당히 달라서, 공급자들은 당연히 보험회사는 보상을 가능하면 효율적으로 뭐 보험금을 적게 주는 거죠. 하는데 노력을 하고, 보험회사는 보험 계약자들은 당연히 이제 그냥 뭐 여기로 말하면 유틸리티 맥시마이제이션 하려면 보험금 당연히 많이 받으려고 한다는 거예요. 그죠? 이게 이제 끝없는 보험의 사실은 분쟁의 역사인데, 여기 나와 있는 인덱스 인슈런스가 되었든지 파라메트릭 인슈런스가 과연 뭔가 좀 도움이 될 수 있는 것인지. 예. 우리 디스커션 코멘트 한번 듣고 우리 닥터 추도 파이널리 코멘트 한번 더 듣죠. 예, 정광 교수님.
저도 사실은 그런 뭐 자동차 경미 사고나 이런 거에서 발생하는 이제 손실 같은 거를 지수형보험으로 커버할 수 있으면은 이제 분쟁이 좀 줄어들 거라는 동감이 되는데요. 근데 아까 이제 여기 주 교수가 얘기한 것처럼 지수형보험이 모랄 하자드가 없다고 했지만, 이제 그런 인적 사고에서 인덱스를 어떻게 설정하냐에 따라서 오히려 모랄 하자드가 발생할 수 있는 소지가 있을 것 같은 생각이 들고요. 그런 경우에 이제 이 인덱스에 따라서, 물론 인데니티 베이스로 하면은 뭐 어떤 식으로 디자인이 가능할 수도 있겠지만, 인덱스에 맞춰, 이게 손해 사정이 사실 없잖아요, 지수형보험 자체가. 그러다 보니까 이거를 좀 무분별하게 남용할 수 있는 소지가 있지 않을까라는 좀 러프한 생각이 좀 들긴 들거든요. 예.
거예요. 예를 들면 주차장에서 속도 20으로 그리고 나이가 50세 이하 건강한 사람과 추돌 했을 때는 예를 들면 이거는 보상은 어느 정도 이상 하지 않는다. 또는 보상은 어느 정도까지 한다. 그래서 이제 그런 어떤 조건 크라이테리아를 우리가 맞추면 이제 보상이 분쟁이 굉장히 많은 분야의 파라메딕 인슈런스가 사용될 수 있는 방법은 없는가에 대해서 이제 그냥 큐리어스한 거죠. 백 박사님. 예.
안 그래도 얼마 전에 저도 그 뭐지 운동하러 갔다 넘어져서 거기서 배상 책임 보험으로 이제 받았는데 공공체육시설에서 그걸로 받았는데 마지막에 가서 이제 계속 저희가 원하는 만큼 배상이 안 되다가 우리 코리안지 직원이요 했더니 좀 올라가더라고요. 농담이고요. 네, 방금 말씀하셨던 거에 대해서 이제 제가 이렇게 반대로 역으로 던져버리면은 아까 모랄 얘기를 말씀을 하셨는데 제가 저희 회사 직원들한테 그러면은 인덱스 보험에서 아니면 파라메트릭 보험에서 사고는 안 났지만 어떻게든 간에 그 인덱스 올 파라메터가 트리거가 됐다. 그래서 받는 거는 모랄인가 아닌가에 대해서 사고는 안 났지만 보상금을 받는 거잖아요. 그래서 그걸 이제 다 얘기를 해보고 마지막에 챗GPT한테도 물어봤어요. 그랬더니 결론은 뭐였냐면은 약관상 어떠한 현상이 발생했을 때 보험금을 지급하는 걸로 약관이기 때문에 이거는 모랄은 아니다. 예. 라는 걸로 얘기를 했었는데 그렇다가 보면은 이제 말씀하신 것처럼 전 보험사 직원입니다. 현실적으로 지급 보험금 자체가 되게 낮게 책정될 수밖에 없어요. 안 그러고서는 너무나 많은 사람들한테 보험금을 지급을 해야 되는 상황이 되고 그러면은 실제로 보험에 도움이 필요한 사람들에게는 오히려 그 보험금이 많이 차이가 안 나고 최근에 KB 그 지수형 보험에 대해서 기사가 하나 나왔었는데 거기서 막 얘기를 하더라고요. 그러면서 뭐 어디였더라 무슨 전통시장 지급보험금에 대해서 보험료는 1년간 뭐 60만 원을 냈는데 받을 수 있는 거는 뭐 50만 원도 안 된다. 이게 뭐 보험이냐 막 그런 기사도 봤었는데 그런 것들을 차이를 줄여 나가는 게 어떻게든 보면은 인덱스 보험이 활성화될 수 있는 방법론 중에 하나고 그 무엇보다도 지수형 보험이 그 다른 전통적인 보험보다 그러니까 효용성이 있다라는 거는 그 지급 보험금 과정에서의 가장 빠른 프로세스이기 때문에 예를 들어갖고 어떤 한 지역에서 전체적으로 큰 사고가 났었을 때 국가에서 그 피해 구역으로 지정하기 전까지는 보상금 받기 힘들고 그런 경우에 빠르게 지급을 할 수 있다는 거에 강점이 있는 거지 피해 규모에 있어서 베이시스 리스크 측면만 놓고 보면 사실 인덱스 보험은 쓸 수 없는 상황이 됩니다. 그래서 아까 말씀하셨던 그런 작은 그런 그 경미사고 그런 것도 약관상 정해진다라고 하면은 큰 문제는 없을 것 같지만 과연 클라이언트들이 그거를 또 보험지는
김성익 박사님.
질문하신 거 당연히 그 생명보험 상품 중에 보면은 스테이지 캔슬이라는 상품이 있습니다. 그게 약간 다른 건데 이거는 우리가 암에 걸리면 보험금을 주고 암에 안 걸리면 보험금을 못 받는 그런 상품이 아니라 암에 걸렸는데 암의 크기가 1cm면 얼마, 2cm면 얼마 그 크기에 따라서 보험금이 달라지는 보험 상품이 있거든요. 근데 이게 상품이 우리나라에서는 출시가 안 됐어요. 왜냐면은 그 비슷한 할 수 있는데 내가 1.99라 해서 2cm에 0.01mm 모자란다고 해서 보험금이 안 적게 나가는 그리고 옆에 앉은 사람은 나랑 0.1mm 차이 났다 해서 돈을 더 나가게 되면은 이것이 과연 약관상 문제는 없지만 그 도덕적 해이를 어떻게 감당할 것이냐. 그래서 상품이 우리나라에서는 안 나왔는데 이 상품이 많이 팔리는 나라가 하나 있거든요. 근데 그 나라는 왜 팔리냐니까 모든 보험 상품이 다 그런 식으로 돼 있어가 사람들이 그걸 다 인지를 하고 당연히 받아들인다 그러더라고요. 결국은 사회적으로 거기를 얼마나 인지하느냐, 받아들이느냐 그 차이가 있는 것 같아요. 그러니까 그 지수형 보험도 마찬가지로 그것이 했을 때 당연히 그렇게 생각하면 상관이 없겠지만 그렇지 않다면 모럴이 없다기보다 오히려 저는 모럴이 굉장히 많이 발생하지 않을까 하는 생각이 듭니다.
예. 지금 현재 온라인상에서 스트레이트 뉴스의 조성진 기사께서 이런 질문을 주셨어요. 기후 변화 보험 신뢰도를 AI로 극복할 때, AI로 극복한다고 할 때 현실적인 보험료 지급 상한선, upper bound죠. 지급 상한선에 대해서 어떻게 생각하는지 여쭙고 싶다고 했습니다. 혹시 이제 여기에 대해서 우리 토론자분들 얘기를 듣고 마지막에 닥터 수에게 우리가 마이크를 넘기도록 하겠습니다. 혹시 생각하시는 바가 있으십니까? 세 분. 어려운 질문이죠.
지급 상한선이라는 게 그러니까 인덱스를 우리가 그러니까
아니, 보험료 이제 여기 이제 보험료 지급상이 어느 정도 보험료를 최대한 내는 것이 좀 현실적일 수 있냐라고 할 때 이건 어떻게 보면 이제 보험 가입자의 성향이나 보험 가입자가 이것을 얼마나 밸류하느냐 뭐 이런 얘기신데 혹시 백천우 박사님 실무감으로 어떻게 생각하세요? 네.
아마 AI를 드러내면은 얘기하는 경우가 더 맞을 것 같아요. 사실 저는 백그라운드가 공학인데 요즘 들어서 AI가 무슨 만능 치료약인 것 마냥 AI만 갖다 들이다 밀면은 다 되는 거라고 생각해갖고 그런 질문은 좀 별로 안 좋아하거든요. 그냥
예.
그 AI 드러내고 봤었을 때 아무리 정확도를 높여도 지급 상한선은 클라이언트가 원하는 만큼은 되지는 않을 거예요. 그리고 기본적으로 대수의 법칙이 아니고 보험금 지급 원리상 보험료 받은 거를 넘어설 수는 없기 때문에 저 질문은 솔직히 좀 대답하기가 쉽지는 않대. 결론은 아마 이럴 것 같습니다. 아무래도 보험사가 원하는 거하고 고객이 원하는 거 둘 다 만족시키진 못할 것 같습니다.
정강민 교수님.
그 지수형보험의 사실 장점은 효과는 실손 보상을 하는 게 아니고 그 프로텍션 갭을 줄이는 효과가
그렇죠.
있는 거거든요. 그러니까 100%의 실손을 보상이 아니고 예를 들면 20%, 또 30%. 사실은 지수형보험이 효과를 가질 수 있는 건데 그런 의미에서는 어쨌든 간에 제가 봤을 땐 과거 데이터 기반으로 보험료를 산정할 수밖에 없을 것이고 그랬을 때 과연 이제 몇 퍼센트 수준까지 보험료를 그러니까 실손을 보상할 것이냐 그거를 셋업하고 보험료를 책정하는 게 현실적으로 맞을 것 같고 그 당연히 마켓에서 이퀄리브리엄이 있어야 되기 때문에 수요 공급이 원하는 수준에서 뭔가 만나야 되거든요. 그거는 조금 트라이얼 앤 에러가 있어야 되지 않을까라는 생각도 들었습니다.
Dr. Zhu.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
please, this is your last comment and answer. Yes.
Okay. I agree with some comments from the panelists, and I also think the insurance premium needs to consider the affordability of the policyholder is very important. So we need to set the appropriate coverage level, and the corresponding premium for the policyholder. And of course, this can be learned and enhanced by AI. If we have a more advanced AI technology, we can utilize AI to help us to know more information about the policyholder. And actually, I personally believe with the advancement of the technology and with the big data, and when insurance companies have more and more data, probably in the future, maybe it's happening now that the adverse selection may change, right? Policyholders may not really understand themselves, and insurance companies with more powerful data can actually understand the policyholders better than themselves, and in that way set the insurance premiums more scientifically and or more aligned with the policyholders' interests and the insurance companies' benefit.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you.
예, 오늘 사실은 조금 이제 아카데믹하고 현실은 대단히 중요한 이런 이제 논문들을 저희들이 오늘 산학 세미나에서 다뤄봤습니다. 앞으로도 이 분야는 상당히 많은 기간 연구가 있고 앞으로 아마도 보험 쪽에서 가장 많은 진보가 있을 분야가 아닌가 이렇게 생각이 됩니다. 그래서 오늘 토론해 주신 세 분 토론자님 그리고 오늘 사실은 싱가포르에서 이 귀한 시간을 내주셔서 오늘 프레젠테이션을 해준 우리 원준주 교수님 대단히 감사를 드리겠습니다. 64회 다음은 우리가 11월 달에 저희들이 아카데믹 하지만 또 현실성이 있는 것으로 해서 찾아뵙도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 사회는 저는 순천향대학교 김원수 교수였습니다. 마치겠습니다.